So when we try to understand, how yoga may work in a patient who has substance use disorder, we have to understand the Panchakosha model. Now, in this model, we have 5 layers of existence, and I want to bring your attention to the third layer of existence, which is called as the Manomaya Kosh. Now, this Manomaya Kosh is made up of very strong likes and dislikes associated with very strong emotions. So the thoughts have a wavy pattern. You like something very strongly, then you develop a repulsion towards it. So most of the thought process in the form of vrittis that are there in this layer are associated with thoughts which are in the form of sounds or images that predominantly consist of my unfulfilled desires. So what I want, I am not able to get it. So these are the things that come up in the mind again and again. And the second pattern of thoughts that come up are whether I will be able to avoid what I do not want. So whether I will be able to get what I want and whether I will be able to avoid what I don't want. So this is what will predominantly consist of this layer of Manomaya Kosha. And what happens when a person takes a substance, or you are addicted to anything, or in a relationship? What happens is when we are able to get an access to the thing that we want, when our senses touch the object, momentarily we feel the bliss. And that bliss also actually comes from our Anandamaya Kosha only. But after that stimulation is gone, its effect is gone, there is rebound closure of the Manomaya Kosha, because by force you are trying to separate your vrittis and get an access to the Anandamaya Kosha. It gives you the access, those substances, but after that, the next day, the hangover is pretty bad. So pictorially, you can see the effect as like this. The third layer has become more thick, the fourth layer has become thinner, and the person has taken the substance, and that has given him a momentary access to his Ananda. But after that, these black arrows are showing that the person is the Manomaya Kosha will again close it, and the next day morning person will actually be more agitated, more restless, more stressed, and then he will have to take a higher amount of substance to open the gate again for his Anandamaya Kosha. And that is the reason that there is tolerance with the drugs. So every time you take a drug, after a few months or years, you need higher amount of that drug to have the same effect. But what happens to a yogi then? A yogi who is able to thin out the third layer of his strong likes and dislikes, and is able to walk on the path of meditation inwards. Those vrittis which again and again bring the person out. Again and again, the yogi uses his breath, uses his asana, uses his bhakti or devotion to keep on walking inwards, inwards, inwards. Then over a period of time, he reaches closer to the source of creation of consciousness. And therefore, this self-awareness, brings him the awareness of his ego, his strong likes and his strong dislikes, and he is able to transform himself, overcome them, thereby thinning out the third layer. And that is why he gains the access to the deeper layers of Anandamaya Kosha most of the time, unconditionally, because it is the very heart of our existence. So I have just tried to pictorially depict a yogi who is in a sustained state of trance because he has been able to completely turn inwards. So here what happens is the Anandamaya Kosha dominates the existence, whereas the third layer has become thinner, and this Ananda is associated with the green color of Vijnanamaya Kosha. So this is the yogic understanding of how yoga can free a person from addiction. It is by turning inwards, yoga will give him a greater addiction, a greater high of bliss, which is coming from his own existence. So that is what is written in Katha Upanishad, where this beautiful example of chariot comes. The whole body is considered as the chariot. The horses are the senses which are always drawn outwards. The reins that are connected to the horse and held by the driver, they are the mind. So mind on one hand is in the hand of the intellect, whereas the reins are controlling the horses, and the source of the consciousness is sitting behind watching. That consciousness, that Atman, his nature is bliss, that is the Anandamaya Kosh. And this, the rider is the Vijnanamaya Kosh. The reins of the horses is the Manomaya Kosh, and the horses are the senses. Now, if each horse runs in a different direction, if horses are the most powerful, player in this chariot, then the chariot will never reach its goal. It will go haywire. Whereas if the intellect looks towards the consciousness, the mind follows the intellect, and senses follow the mind, the whole chariot will be able to reach its goal. So therefore, yoga talks about turning inwards. So this is the domain through which I would like to say that these externalizing disorders, the person becomes more and more restless, the more he gets addicted to the substances. And therefore, what we do in our therapy is that we start giving yogic practices which strengthen the Vijnanamaya Kosh. So this prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex, this is the area of the brain which is known as the PFC. This is what is neocortex that makes us human. And it keeps sending inhibitory signals to the lower part of the brain, which is the amygdala and limbic cortex. Now, this is the area of the brain which is associated with impulsive actions, which is associated with a lot of negative emotions and craving. So what yoga does is, by doing faster breathing practices of Kapalabhati, Bhastrika, you on the stop switch of PFC and ACC by activating it, and by using the humming sound of Om or the Makara, you deactivate the go switch. So it is this way systematically, yoga is able to work in the case of substance use disorders. So this is the research where we found that Om chanting can deactivate the limbic cortex. Similarly, we have already discussed the 3 limbs of Om, where Ma is able to take you inwards, and we showed that Om actually had a deactivating effect. And this is another study where Kapalabhati, as a fast breathing practice, is able to increase the oxygenation in bilateral prefrontal cortices. Kapala means forehead, Bhati means shining. So this is the scientific basis, and based on this, the yoga capsule for substance use disorder involves initial 1 minute of reducing the anxiety, by tightening all the parts of the body. So you stretch your body from toes to head, take a deep breath in and tighten all the muscles of your body in 1 minute. Tighten, 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 and then release and relax. Allow your breath to settle down. After that, you bring your attention towards your breathing and enhance oxygenation in your body by doing Ujjayi Pranayama. So you focus on your navel region, and as you breathe in, you produce this sound, friction sound in the throat. So this is instant relaxation. And then in Ujjayi, the awareness comes up to the throat, and as you breathe out, the awareness once again comes back to the navel region. You do this Ujjayi breathing for 9 rounds. The name itself suggests victory, the victorious breath you have to win. Then you go to fast breathing practices of Kapalabhati. The stroke levels are 60 to 100 per minute based on the capacity of the person. You perform 1 cycle fast and forceful, and at the end of Kapalabhati, after the fast flapping of the abdomen, you exhale and hold your breath in exhalation and put a Jalandhar Bandha like this, and hold your breath in complete exhalation. So this breaks the repeated loops of thoughts in the mind, the craving that is coming in the mind in the form of images and sound. That cycle breaks. And then you perform another fast breathing practice, fast rounds of Bhastrika Pranayama. Breathe in fully, breathe out fully, using your full lung capacity. This is another practice that helps in breaking the Chitta Vrittis. And then you perform a cooling breath to calm down the mind. So roll your tongue, breathe in through the mouth and breathe out through the nose. This has a calming, relaxing effect. And after that, the person performs the Bhramari Pranayama and Om chanting to turn inwards. So this is the way we start the practice with the body, match the speed of the mind, then slow down and turn inwards. So this is the capsule that I wanted to show you for managing substance use. Here, one important point to remember is when a patient is experiencing acute withdrawal symptoms, then we do not teach them those activating practices of Kapalabhati and Bhastrika. We straight away give them Ujjayi, cooling breath, and Bhramari, and part by part relaxation of the body. So, thank you very much.